Hello, and here we go for another Science Fiction Friday, because it's Friday and because we like science fiction, particularly science fiction comedy, don't we? And so we are reading Dial G for Gravity, the first Brent Bolster book by me, the author Michael Campling. I usually put M. Campling on my sci-fi these days to differentiate it from my mysteries, but hopefully we will crack on. Now, last time, this is episode 12. Last time, on episode 11, of course, we stopped partway through chapter 12 because it was so darn long. So we will go back a little way. Thank you so much for being here. I do wonder sometimes, shall I keep up this? Is it just madness? But, you know, we will persevere for a bit longer. So, Dial G for Gravity, a science fiction comedy read by the author Michael Campling. What can I say? Maisie raised her hands, then let them fall in her lap. When I saw you standing there, I somehow knew that you weren't a threat. I guess you seemed familiar, and I started to recollect our previous encounter. But the full memory didn't come back to me until this afternoon. I get what you're saying, Vince put in. Brent hasn't been able to remember much since he went missing. An awful lot of his marbles went walkabout in those 10 days. Maisie gasped. You were gone for 10 days too? That's the same for me. 10 whole days just wiped out as though they never happened. She hesitated, tears moistening her eyes. I'll admit it. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what might have happened to me in that time. I've got to find out, however bad it is. I have to know. Do you think you could help me? I mean, you are an investigator, and I'm sure you must be a good one. You certainly managed to track me down to that diner. A delicate chuckle slipped from her ruby lips. It's a trashy place, I know, but I kind of like it. I've no idea how you managed to find me so quickly. Actually, Vince began, but Brent talked over him, raising his voice. Thank you, Vince, but I'm sure Miss Richmond understands that as a qualified investigator and a platinum-level member of the AGI, I couldn't possibly divulge the secrets of my trade. I suppose not, Maisie said, and please call me Maisie. After all, we're going to be working together. Brent wrinkled his nose. Not so much together. I work alone, unless you count Vince here, which, speaking personally, I try not to do. But don't get me wrong, I'm happy to take you on as a client. I'll have to check, but I think my usual daily rates are waived in this particular case, Vince interrupted, meeting Brent's glare with one of his own. Never let it be said that Bolster and Associates Investigations took advantage of someone who needed our help. Wait a minute. Brent's faculties were recovering quickly now, and he distinctly remembered a few important terms that he'd normally bandy about at this point in the proceedings. Not just the daily rates and extra charges for night work, but magical phrases like travel allowances, subsistence payments, and sundry expenditures. As the words crept into his mind, he greeted them like old friends, and in turn they introduced him to their fellows. Uncategorized expenses, miscellaneous outgoings, and early completion bonuses. All of these things he felt instinctively were very close to his heart, and he should not be expected to abandon them in favour of the prudish little term, pro bono. Vince strode closer to Brent, his solid frame blocking Maisie from view, and Brent couldn't help but notice the way Vince's shoulders strained the seams of his jacket almost to bursting point. Listen for a second, Vince began. You wanted to crack this mystery before we even knew about Miss Richmond. You need to solve it. It's in your interests to find out what happened, so you need this case just as much as she does. All right, goddammit. Brent shoved past Vince and plastered his best smile across his face. Miss Rich, that is, Maisie. I will be delighted to take your case. It would be my honor to help you in any way I can. He shot a look at Vince. Perhaps you could fetch Maisie a drink. Sure, Vince said. I think there's some coffee left. Oh, do you have tea? Maisie asked. English breakfast, if you have it. That's my favourite. Mine too, Brent crooned. Vince, why don't you run along to the store and fetch some of that delicious tea for our guest? All right, why not? Vince held out his hand, but when all he received was a blank look from Brent, he added, "Cash? For the tea?" Brent waved him aside. "I'm sure you can take care of it, now that you're my associate." Vince's shoulders slumped and he headed for the door. "Don't get too far ahead without me," he said over his shoulder. "And take notes, lots of notes." He shut the door with more force than was called for, and his heavy tread could be heard in the office as he stomped down the stairs. To business. Brent settled himself at his desk, brushing the careful piles of paperwork aside with a sweep of his arm. "Where were you when you were abducted?" "I think I was just coming away from a fundraiser," Maisie offered. "The next thing I knew, I was waking up back at home, all dressed up to the nines. I was confused, but I knew I was supposed to be at work, so I showered and changed and headed across town. I was starving, so I stopped off at the diner, and that's pretty much all I know. How about you?" "The same, only without the fundraiser, the regular job, the fancy clothes, and Brent gave the air an experimental sniff. "I'm pretty sure I didn't shower either." "So completely different then?" Brent shrugged. "We were both supposed to be immune, but we were both taken. We have that in common. That and the 10 missing days. We just need a lead, something to go on." He drummed his fingers on the desk, feeling sharper by the minute. It felt good to be working the case. He could do this. It was his territory. "So you went back to work. Anything weird there? Anything out of place? Someone with a grudge, maybe?" "No, nothing like that." "Excuse me being personal, but I have to rule out the usual suspects," Brent said. "For instance, do you have a jealous husband at home? Or maybe an over-emotional fiancé? A boyfriend?" Maisie's smile was coy, but there was a glint in her eye. "I know you're fishing, Mr. Bolster, so I shouldn't even answer. But for the record, I'm single. My work takes up all my time." "And what work is that exactly?" "I'm a researcher studying the impact on Earth of the globe on arrival." Maisie leaned forward, warming to her subject. "I'm especially interested in the economic and political issues that have arisen since the Globons arrived, and I'm undertaking a long-term study of the way the Globons have influenced patterns of human activity. You know, working lives, settlement, migration, all the usual stuff." Brent pursed his lips. "I understand exactly what you're talking about, but we'll need a simpler version for Vince. He's a little slow on the uptake, if you know what I mean. He was involved with a college football team, and he took a few bumps to the head." "Ah, he certainly has the right build for it. What was he, a fullback?" Brent blinked. "Oh, he didn't play. I think they used him for a tackling sled. You know, those guys could charge into Vince all day long and never knock him down. Not once. But let's get back to it. The one-line version of your job description might be something like, you try to figure out how come our Globon overlords are still calling all the shots, even though we've got them outnumbered. Am I right?" Maisie sighed. "You ever heard of the Aztecs?" "Of course, the Aztec family own that chain of Mexican... Sorry. Of course, the Aztec family own that chain of Mexican restaurants." Brent patted his stomach. "That reminds me, I never did get to finish my chili." "You're just being obtuse. The Aztecs ruled their part of the world because they had the best weapons available. Clubs with shards of volcanic glass set into the sides. But along came the Spaniards with steel and gunpowder, and the Aztecs were doomed." She folded her arms. "You must know that Globon tech is way ahead of anything we ever had on Earth. If they'd wanted to invade, we'd have been wiped out in no time at all." Brent grimaced. "I'd have liked to see them try." "No, you wouldn't. Look what happened to the UK." "That was a shame," Brent admitted. "I always wanted to visit London." His expression brightened. "Still, on the plus side, I hear all their politicians got zapped, so most folks are probably better off." Maisie pressed the fingers of one hand against her temple. "I'll tell you what, Brent. Let's just say that I study the way things have turned out since the Globons arrived, and leave it at that." "Sure, why not?" Brent took a breath. "So, here's what happened to me. I was home in my apartment, fast asleep, when the Globon showed up. It's coming back to me now. He was a funny guy, or thought he was. He liked to run off at the mouth. Green. He had a real weird name, too. Something like a widget you use when you're putting a shelf up. Maisie's hand flew to her mouth. I know what you mean. I had the same guy. And he came to the cell later to let you out. What was he called? Bracket? Drill bit? Ratchet? Almost. Brent's fingers combed the air as if he could pull the right word from the ether, drawing it out from an invisible chaos. It definitely started with an R. Router? A rebate? He sat suddenly still, his eyes locked on Maisie's. I have it. It was roll plug. Maisie's face lit up with a jubilant smile, and all hell broke loose. Something slammed into the office door with a mighty crash, and a raucous roar of anger split the air, followed a split second by a harsh yelp of pain. Brent jumped to his feet. Maisie, get behind me! Maisie leaped from her chair, and Brent yanked open his desk drawer, searching for a weapon that his instincts told him must be there. But before he could find it, the door burst open, and a tall figure strode into the room. The Globon was tall and thin, his eyes burning with fury, and he was stark naked. He lifted his long, thin arm and pointed at Brent. My name, he yelled, his voice filled with venom, is Rollgeeb, and I will have my vengeance upon you, human. I'm sorry. Brent clicked his fingers. Rollgeeb, yes, that's it. Seriously? Maisie hissed. That's what you're getting from this? Rollgeeb staggered closer, his arms still outstretched. They took everything from me. Everything. They took my badge, my tablet, my handset, all of it. Then they stripped me. They beat me, and they did things no Globon should ever do to another. He let out a wail of anguish mixed with unbridled rage. And they laughed at me. I'm sorry to hear that, Brent said, keeping his voice level. That sounds real bad, especially He cleared his throat and leaned forward, letting his hands creep further into the drawer. Where the hell is that damned gun? But there was nothing there except for crumpled balls of paper and small fragments of something crumbly that lodged beneath his nails as he scrabbled through the detritus. I hope those are just cookie crumbs or something like that, he thought. But aloud he said, Tell me about this badge. I didn't know you guys had badges. What was it, gold or what? What does it matter what it was made of? It was my badge of rank. It was everything I've worked for, everything I was. Brent managed a strained smile. You're being hard on yourself. You know, work isn't everything. It is to all good Globons, Rollgeeb spluttered. But I'm not a Globon anymore. They took that too. I'm just a nothing. Brent's fingers found an edge of cold metal, and he recognized the feel of the alien weapon he'd been given many years ago. Grasping the gun firmly, he whipped it up, pointing it at Rollgeeb's chest. Ha ha! Back off, my green and very angry little friend. Don't make me use this. Go ahead, Rollgeeb sneered. For one thing, it's not loaded. You can tell by the blue light on the side. Brent narrowed his eyes. You're bluffing. You can't kid a kidder. For another thing, Rollgeeb went on, I don't have any papers I need fastening together at the moment. And that's what that particular device is for, in case you hadn't grasped my meaning. I'm spelling it out for you because you seem to be some kind of moron. In the silence that followed, nothing moved except for the beads of sweat trickling down Brent's brow. This gun was a gift from an old client. I don't think he'd have fobbed me off with some piece of useless junk. He set his mouth in a grim line, his expression hard, but from the corner of his eye he caught sight of Algernon in his ridiculous bowl, and his confidence evaporated. He couldn't remember much about his old clients, but something told him they were a bunch of slippery bastards, not to be trusted under any circumstances. I have spent a lifetime in administration, Rollgeeb snarled, and if there's one thing we don't joke about, it's office equipment. Rollgeeb craned his long neck toward Brent. And now his voice was a rasping whisper. "The GM903 is the most powerful stapler in the world. It takes heavy-duty 10mm staples that can go clean through 100 sheets of A4. But I know what you're thinking. Maybe you fired the whole clip, or maybe there's still one shot left in the mechanism. So what you've got to ask yourself is, do I feel lucky? Well, do you, Brent? Do you feel lucky?" "Shit!" Brent tossed the staple gun onto his desk. "I guess we'll have to do this the hard way." He pulled back his sleeves and adopted a fighting stance. "You asked for this, pal." Rawgeeb tilted his head to one side, the vertebrae cracking in his neck. "As you wish, but I hope you've remembered that even as an exiled Globon, I can still punch with 25 times more force than the average human." "Yeah, I knew that, obviously," Brent said, "but I know something that you don't." "I doubt that very much indeed." Rawgeeb raised his own fists and bared his teeth. "Believe it, because my friend Vince is a damn sight tougher than the average human. And while you were ranting about staple guns, he was walking in the door. He's standing right behind you, right now." Rawgeeb froze, but before he could turn around, Vince crashed into him, sending him sprawling to the floor and landing on top of him. Vince's clothes were ripped. There was a graze on one side of his head, and his face was puce with anger. He pinned Rawgeeb to the ground and sat astride him, holding his opponent's arms in a vice-like grip. "Jump me when I'm not looking, would you?" Vince roared. "Sneak up behind me, would you? I'll teach you a lesson, you bastard." "Whoa," Brent called out. "Take it easy, Vince. We want him alive." "I was bringing the tea," the Vince hollered. "Tea, goddammit! You don't jump a guy when he's running up the stairs with nothing on him but a goddamn packet of Earl Grey." "Oh, was there no English breakfast?" Maisie murmured. But when Vince turned his gaze on her, she smiled and said, "Thank you anyway, Vince. Earl Grey's fine. Lovely." Rawgeeb struggled for a second, then he seemed to deflate. "All right. You win. I was suffering from the gomme hafir for a while, but it's past." "What's that?" Vince asked, leaning back as far as he could, while still holding Rawgeeb down. "You don't have some kind of weird alien disease, do you? Because I have allergies." "It's a kind of blood rage," Maisie put in. "The gomme hafir is a phenomenon usually associated with Globon warriors. It's kind of like a red mist, and it only occurs in extreme circumstances." She paused. "We're probably the only humans to have witnessed it. Well, the only ones who've lived to tell the tale, anyway. It's just as well he wasn't armed." "Please, you can let me go," Rawgeeb mumbled. "I won't cause you any more trouble. I was supposed to come here to talk, but after what happened, I must have snapped. Don't worry, I'll leave quietly if you let me go." "Hold on a second," Brent said. "You wanted to talk to us, and I reckon that goes both ways. If your gummy heifer is all done messing with your mind, we might just be able to salvage something from this train wreck. Play ball with us, and I'll make sure Vince here doesn't rip your arms and legs off." "I doubt whether he could," Rawgeeb replied. "My joints are much tougher than yours." "Doesn't mean he wouldn't have had a great deal of fun trying," Brent countered. "Now, what do you say? We'll set you free, and in return you'll help us out by answering a few questions." Rawgeeb took a steadying breath. "All right. What choice do I have? I may as well go along with it. Seems to be my day for helping people out." Brent strolled round his desk and patted Vince on the shoulder. "You did good, kid, but you can get off him now." Vince looked doubtful, but he hauled himself off the alien, then stood back, his face falling when he noticed the state of his own clothes. "This is my best jacket, and it's ruined." "Vince, that's your only jacket," Brent said, "and it was ruined when some poor sweatshop sap first put a needle and thread to it. I'll tell you what, get yourself a new suit, and I'll take it out of your wages." "Thanks." Vince started to smile, but it didn't last long. "Very funny. How about you pay me a fat bonus for saving your ass from an outraged alien, and you give me compensation for my damaged clothes? Otherwise, I might just have a blood rage of my own on one of these fine days, and then we'll see what might get hurled through the window." Gentlemen, Maisie said firmly, and gentle being, I think it's time we all calmed down and talked rationally for a while. She stepped closer to Rawgeeb. Please, get up. Do you need anything? Rawgeeb sat up slowly. Some clothes would be nice. They all looked at Vince, even Algernon. You have to be kidding, Vince moaned. He's very tall, and your clothes the only ones that might fit, Brent said. Like you said, they're pretty beat up anyhow. Fine, just goddamn fine. Vince pulled off his jacket and tossed it to Rawgeeb. Brent made an encouraging gesture. Shirt and pants, too. Vince glared with a ferocity Brent had never seen before. What? Give the guy some dignity, Brent said. He needs to cover himself up. Brent shuddered. Besides, he's giving me the creeps. Do you want me to turn around to preserve your modesty? Maisie asked, lifting her eyebrows just a fraction, a mischievous grin flickering across her lips. Vince didn't reply. In silence and with a face like thunder, he removed his pants and shirt, dropping them on the floor. Then he trudged over to his desk and sat down, his arms folded. Happy now? Rawgeeb dressed quickly, then stood, Vince's clothes hanging generously from his angular frame. Thank you. You're very kind. It's more than I have a right to expect. Damn straight, Vince growled. Brent perched on the edge of his desk. Maisie, why don't you take your seat and we'll get back to business? Hmm? Maisie asked absently, her gaze lingering on Vince. Tell me, do you work out, or is that just your natural physique? Don't confuse the lad with the long words, Brent said, gesturing firmly to the chair in the centre of the room. Please, sit down. Rollplug, do you want my chair? Rawgeeb stiffened. For the last time, it's a Rawgeeb. No, thank you. I prefer to stand. Fine. Brent studied the globe on for a second. You know what? That damn jacket looks better on you than it did on Vince. I think it must be the green skin. It kind of offsets the hideous pattern. That jacket is linen and silk, Vince said. Cost me a fortune. Rawgeeb plucked at the jacket's lapel and gave it an experimental sniff. Synthetic, polyester and, let me see. Yes, more polyester. He looked at Vince, perhaps recognizing a kindred spirit, and added, Don't worry. When all this is sorted out, I'll have it cleaned and repaired, and I'll send it back to you. Vince's frown turned into a guarded smile. Thanks, he muttered gruffly. Appreciate it. He turned to Brent. So, how far did you get before we were interrupted? Did you take notes? Brent tapped the side of his head. It's all in here. Maisie was just telling me how she was abducted, then wound up at home. What was your address again? I didn't give it, Maisie replied. Exactly. That's why I didn't remember it. Brent beamed at Vince. See? It's a perfect system. Forgive me, Rawgeeb began, but we find that humans are often quite confused immediately after sampling. Your memories will return in full over the coming days, but in the meantime, perhaps I could help by filling in the gaps. Maisie clapped her hands together. That would be wonderful. For a start, why were we abducted? We should have been immune. In your case, you're correct, Rawgeeb replied. As a UN employee, you should never have been taken, but I was given incorrect instructions. It could have been an error, but I believe it was deliberate. Someone wanted you taken, and when the truth was discovered, they wanted you sent back as if nothing had happened. Then why did I lose 10 days? Maisie asked, a tremor creeping into her voice. Where have I been for the last week and a half? That I cannot answer, Rawgeeb replied sadly, but perhaps we can piece it together. What about me? Brent demanded. You admitted Maisie shouldn't have been taken, but you said in your case. Are you implying I should have been abducted? Rawgeeb nodded firmly. Your AG license had expired. You were fair game. Expired? Brent spluttered. I'll have you know that I'm a fully paid-up platinum member. That happened afterward. Someone bailed you out, so to speak. And that's why I had to go down to the cells and send you home. It was most annoying. Rawgeeb heaved a sigh. I was in the bath at the time. Everything was going so well. A memory swam to the surface of Brent's mind. Yes, his membership had been bought and paid for by someone unknown. It was all coming back to him, and it could only mean one thing. Someone's trying to use me. They've paid up front, and one day soon they'll come to collect. That still doesn't explain the 10 days, Maisie said. Where were we? What happened to us? I'm not sure that even matters, Brent replied. The point is, someone wanted me wound up and ready to go. They gave me the tools for the job, then they made sure I had an axe to grind. Hell, they maybe even sent our green friend here to point us in the right direction. For all I know, they put that flyer on my desk and sent me to Martha's god-awful diner. Aren't you forgetting Bolster's first law? Vince asked. Brent frowned. What, you mean always check there's toilet paper before you commit? Toilet joke, sorry. No, the one about conspiracy theories being the work of one man, Vince protested. And also, ew. A strange barking sound erupted from Rawlgeeb. The work of one man. I like that. Very good. Very droll. Right. Brent rubbed his hands together in a way that he hoped would make him look purposeful and dynamic. But whoever paid for that upgrade, they also gave me something else. They gave me a lead. Can you trace the payment? Maisie asked. Definitely. Vince, work your magic. Already on it. Vince had pulled a slim laptop from his desk drawer, and his fingers blurred as he typed. Wow! You won't believe this. Brent stood tall, excitement jangling through his nerves. What? Who paid? Was it a mobster? A crime syndicate? A drug cartel? No. Vince clapped a hand across his brow. It was the mayor. The mayor's office? Brent shook his head. What am I? A public utility? No, that's just it, Vince said. It was nothing to do with his office. Mayor Enderley paid your fee from his personal account. It's all right here. All right then, Brent drawled. I guess that gives us a line of inquiry. Hop aboard, people. First stop, the mayor's office. Phew, it was still a long one, even though it was only part of a chapter. So if you stuck it with me to the end, thank you so much. I hope you're subscribed. If not, please do so. And, liking, sharing would be fantastic, because then if we can get a few more people listening, it may mean I can, really get this thing off the ground, get it rolling, and hopefully do lots more. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're not sure where to find it, wherever you're listening is usually the good spot. So, you subscribe on whatever podcast app you're using. If you want to see the videos, they're on YouTube. You can find that there. And if you want to know where to sort of find a central hub of all my readings and podcasts and bits and bobs, you can go to michaelcampling.com. If you want to find Dial G for Gravity, there is a post, there is a link in the show notes, should be, and it's definitely in the post on michaelcampling.com. Otherwise, just search on Amazon for Dial G for Gravity. Look for M Campling, I believe, and you will find the latest version of the ebook, and it's in Kindle Unlimited. You should also be able to find the paperback there, and you can find the ebook. Should be available in your library service. Hope so anyway. It's supposed to be. I'll wrap it up because this is a long one. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Really appreciate your support. If you haven't got my newsletter, if you go to authormichaelcampling.com, you can also find out a bit more about my books and what I write and stuff like that. Because I do a newsletter called Postcard from the Edge of Dartmoor. So that's a bit more about kind of daily life and stuff and where I've been, some photos, always some nice photos. Why it's called Postcard. Got nice pictures in it that I've taken in the locale or wherever I've been. Okay, have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Science Fiction Friday. Take care of yourselves, and if you're in the UK or somewhere that's experiencing this heat wave, I hope you're staying cool. I'm now going to open the window because I shut it for this recording. I'm going to turn my fan back on because I had to turn that off too, and I'm going to be able to breathe again. Have a great weekend. Bye. See you next time.